I think I might have discovered a solution to burnout. It's nothing very groundbreaking, so don't hold your breath. But I've been having some thoughts about a kind of paradox that exists at work, and I thought I'd share. And I wanted to start by explaining why I've just finished a 72-hour straight shift, Friday morning to Monday morning, on the whole time for any kind of emergency call. So I was called in many, many times, lots of cases. And prior to that, it was my consultant of the week, where I'm responsible for all the inpatients, all the acute admissions. And I do that at two hospitals because I'm an idiot. But this was at the big cardiac tertiary center. So lots of very complicated cases, many patients in intensive care, cardiac arrests, all these kinds of things. And at the end of this week and this very long shift, I'm actually not feeling tired. I'm feeling full of energy. I'm feeling invigorated. I'm feeling quite happy. So that's kind of strange, right? So why am I not feeling tired? Now, you might argue with some credence that this is just sleep deprivation and delirium setting in. And, from a purely Bayesian perspective, that hypothesis might hold some water. But actually, I think I know what's going on. And it's that I have remembered that I really love this job, which is good, but it's also kind of sad that I've got to a point where I've had to do this very intense week to remember why I enjoy medicine. So let me kind of explain what I think's been going on for me, which is that in the last few months, I've been experiencing something I've never had before in my whole career. And it took me a little while to recognize it, which is burnout. I've been feeling burnout, and I'm a very unstressed person normally. I mean, my friends joke I'm almost pathologically lacking in kind of anxiety or stress, which is great. I'm very fortunate about that. But this, as a result, this has really kind of knocked me, and I'm not alone. Across the board, particularly in medicine, consultants, GPs, the most senior level of doctors, but I'm sure in other healthcare professionals as well. The rates of burnout are going through the roof. Lots of people are leaving medicine. There's a lot of talk of these moral injury as a new phrase that I'd never heard a few years ago. And the number one reason that is cited by consultants and probably by GPs as well is the enormous and ballooning administrative workload. And this means all the stuff that we do that isn't kind of what the average member of the public thinks of as being a doctor. So it's, just sitting at a computer, going through mountains and mountains of admin paperwork, doing forms. And this has become much worse for me when I took over as the head of the department, which, I was happy to do. And in the NHS, often these things are sold to you as a way to affect change. But in reality, you're often just fighting fires with the NHS finances as they are at the moment. So, this has massively, exponentially increased the amount of spreadsheets I have to look at, the amount of meetings on Teams I have to attend, managing people. I mean, if I wanted to do that, I would have just started my own company and had employees. These are all important jobs, but it's not something that I think many of us are cut out for. And that's okay to say. What have I trained for years to do? Why did I go to medical school? Why did I take all those exams, move around the country, not see my family, miss friends and family occasions like weddings, earn less than my peers in other professions for over a decade? All these kind of sacrifices that people make is to be a doctor, right? That's why we do it. It's okay. I'm not playing a violin for myself here. We made these choices in order to do a job that we want to do. And yet, this is the paradox that I wanted to talk about. The more senior we get in a profession, the less you actually do the thing that you have become good at. That's a bit strange, right? The most senior surgeons may not even operate that often. I certainly spent much more time in the cath lab, in the kind of operating theatre, when I was a registrar or a fellow, compared to now. And so it's bizarre. And I'm sure it happens in other professions too, but it is particularly bizarre in medicine, where you have the most senior clinicians doing less clinical work. And so what did I do last week to leave me in this kind of happy state at the moment? actually, it was a very intense week, right? I was so busy that I didn't have time to check my email. I didn't have time to attend any meetings. I didn't have time to deal with all the literally hundreds of queries and complaints and all these kind of things from everybody. But what I did do was be a doctor. And we had 2 cases, genuinely once in a career diagnosis that we made in 2 different patients a couple of days apart, which is astonishing. I can't obviously talk about the details, but we are going to at least try and write one of them up. So if I get the proper permission and everything, I would love to share, because I've never seen anything like these cases before. And then at the weekend with this on for the whole weekend, it sounds kind of really cringy and narcissistic, but we genuinely were saving lives. You know, these are patients coming in acute emergencies, imminently deadly, life-threatening conditions. Some of these patients would be dead in minutes if the team and I had not been there to give treatment. And that's tremendously rewarding. You know, that is where you really feel you're making a difference, when you're having direct patient care. And so it made me think that a lot of the things that the person on the street will assume is what's hard about being a doctor: dealing with death, making life and death decisions, talking to families, breaking bad news, getting covered in blood. I got sprayed in the face with blood twice on Saturday. Long hours, night shifts. Those are the things people assume are difficult about being a doctor. But actually, that's the stuff that gets us out of bed and going into work. That's the stuff we relish. That's the stuff I take great pride at being good at. I feel in my element when I'm doing that stuff. But in reality, the things that make my job and others like me, our jobs, difficult is all this enormous administrative workload, the mental bandwidth that comes with shouldering a lot of this medical legal responsibility. And you can kind of see that look, my video output was so much more when I was doing actually longer hours. I was working more night shifts as a registrar, and yet I was still able to kind of write and feel creative. And now, you know, when I get home from work, I just kind of want to hang out with the kids and my wife, and it's really difficult to get into that kind of creative mindset to write something. So I don't know, I just thought I would share these thoughts. I'm glad, of course, that I have had this moment of realizing that I do still love my job, because if you'd asked me that a few weeks ago or a few months ago, you know, I was maybe idly starting to think about whether this is going to be sustainable long term. And I may get to that again in a few months' time. We can't have jobs where these good moments are so rare that they, you know, come along every few months, because you've got to have a balance. I don't think any senior doctor can have a job where they don't do any of that boring stuff. Of course, it's inevitable. You want your most senior clinicians making important decisions about the department, but we've got to get the balance right. And at the moment, it clearly isn't. And I think a lot of people are saying the same thing. My God, I thought this would be like 2 minutes. The counter says it's over 8 minutes. So I apologize for ranting on, but maybe, you know, some of you will have similar thoughts as well. I said I'm not feeling tired, but I have not slept very much. So I better get to bed. I'll have an early night tonight, go to sleep at the same time with the kids, because I got to get up early tomorrow, because I got a full day of admin and paperwork waiting for me. Can't wait.